Hey everyone, it's Naomi and welcome to the Firecracker Department Aftershow. This is where some of the core members, some of the community members, we all come together and we talk about our past podcast episodes and things that kind of hit our heart or made us go, oh, that's interesting. I haven't thought about that for a long time. Or, oh, that really gets my, we talk about things that motivate us. And here we are with Emily Churchill, who's in Los Angeles. She's one of the funniest people I know, and she's a writer, performer. She's also the head of the wellness department, and she produces the Aftershow. And then we've got AJ Edmonds, who's in Toronto. She is a stunning performer. She's also a creator, writer, and she is in charge of our content creation and produces the Aftershow. And then we've got our guest core member, Anna Gustafson, who's just the funniest writer. Even her tweets are funny. You've got to go and look at her tweets. Too convoluted. And she is also in charge, of course, with our comedy department. All right, folks, we are talking today about the Jewish Film Festival that I think I did. I mean, it feels a long time ago. I'm going to say last year sometime. But I got to sit down with some of the funniest females that I've had in my history. And the names and their performances have always been so current in my brain. We sat down with Gay Claitman, Marla Lukofsky, Monica Parker, Rosemary Radcliffe. It was extraordinary. Tell me, AJ, start us off. What did you think about panel?
It is so awesome to just listen to a bunch of funny women be funny right? Off script. They get, we have Fairness on sketch. So that's one of the only all women troupe we have to look at for comedy in Canada, and just listening to them bounce off each other and just be laughing about life experience. It was so great to just sort of be in my ears in a room filled with really, really funny ladies. And so many things that they talked about. But I think the biggest thing for me was just that everyone's journey is different, but there's a lot of similarities in artists, a lot of comedians, and we know this historically with almost all comedians, is comedy comes from a place of protection. It comes from, a place of trauma and hiding, making a joke out of something that might not be funny to other people. But the one thing that was said that it resonated right down to a 16-year-old AJ was being a smartass is the gateway to comedy.
Yes. I'm telling you. Right? My mom would call it being cheeky just to erase the ass part of it, but I'm a fan of cheeky people.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. My driving instructor.
I love how. Oh yeah, go.
He was the first person to flat out call me a smart ass. I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, I'm into it. It's true.
But I love how all these gals were they're sort of in the trenches. They're from an era where Marla was talking about. She was the only woman on the poster or on the bill, and a lot of these women could relate to that kind of thing. So it kind of had this great energy of I don't know, camaraderie in the trenches of comedy at that time. Emily, what did you think?
I thought it was so inspiring to hear. I feel like they were a different era, but we share a lot of the same things, especially when they were talking about comedy. I did do stand-up for a bit, which is, I loved it, and I was yeah, and then one time a guy was running it, and he was like, oh, you don't have anybody here, and in my head I'm like, I had so many people last night. What's happening? And he wouldn't let me go on. And so after that, I was like, oh, see you later. I can't do this. No.
I mean, it's not for the faint of heart.
It's not. That's the thing. It's not for the. And we all have the stories, right? And so I think it was just inspiring to hear that they also went through it and they got through it too. We're we're just gonna keep going. Yeah. Let's just keep going because this is BS.
Gotta keep going.
But also the amazing, there was, and I'm sorry that I can't put faces to the names you were talking. But one of the women said, she goes, I got tired of it. So I just stopped and moved on. And now I'm just composing concertos or something.
Oh, I think that's Rosemary Radcliffe. But Rosemary Radcliffe, if Second City, she's in one of the most iconic Second City photos of them all sitting on that car with John Candy and everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And that's her. She's been around, and for her to go, you know what, I'm just gonna do something else. I respect that. I don't think that this,
There's so
Tell
many
me more,
so
Anna.
many people in comedy, from what I could, and I felt it, that you can't leave. Like it's like it's like the Hotel California. Come on in, this is really nice here, and you can't ever leave. And there's a weird way that people feel like they're tied to it, and it gets in the way. I think like you can, everything that you are as a comedian, you can pick up and move over and write something, or you can pick up and concerto. Didn't know that one, but
Yeah.
you know, you have all the things, and you have that weird sort of unicorn brain that writes comedy that can fit in a lot of places. And I wish more people would get out of their own way.
But it's true.
Realize
It's true
what they have.
Lots of arts, right? Like when you're a kid and you're asked, you know, are you, even in triple threat school when I went, they said, are you predominantly a singer, an actor, or a dancer? And I always hated answering that question because I was like, in a triple threat program, doesn't that mean I threat equally across the board?
You're threatening on all
You're
boards.
so
I'm
threatening.
threatening.
I just
Yeah.
I'm so
Equal
uncomfortable
threat.
right now.
Just an equal threat. No, but even in producing, right? Like I found a lot of comfort in listening to, like, you know, I was burnt out, so I moved on to something else. And I'm going through the process of moving from being a producer for 10 years into wanting to be creative in a different aspect. And it's hard because people see you as a comedian, they see you as a producer, and you have to almost reinvent the way people engage with you and be fearless in the pursuit of going like sort of back to square one.
Yeah, it's hard
I
to
mean, you
untie
look
your
at somebody
duck
like
from
Monica. Oh yeah, say it.
So no, it's hard to untie your boat from the wharf that you've always known.
Yeah.
It's scary. Like you're going out without paddles, but you know, you got to do it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Monica Parker is an interesting one because, you know, she's still doing comedy. She was just she's on Carter last year, and then now she's writing books, and she's still doing live shows. Like I think at some point you look to yourself and go, what do I need to do, as opposed to what does my community need from me, which I think sometimes is the momentum that keeps us going. I just loved listening to the vibrancy. Yeah, Anna.
The vibrancy that you were picking up on, I think, in my experiences, and theirs too, they said you don't get to be out on the road with your girls. Like you're always the one woman on the show, and you spend all your time with some lovely men and some just nightmares. But that's the thing. And you go, and when we all get together and can talk about comedy, that's like a bonfire. Like it's really, I every time I see women together talking about comedy, there's an electricity that you don't get on the road because we crave it so much because we never see each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard it on that.
Yeah, you were. How long?
Too.
Yeah.
How long did you do stand up for? I mean, you probably do
I'm
stand up
an era too.
Speaking now, but
I am also an era. You know what? I don't know about that. This time, this sort of introspective time, I'm really missing comedy. Like it's more writing now, but just that what it's like to go back in, and it never goes. Like you've got the muscle. It's like you go back and you'll get it back, and you'll have a couple shaky sets, and it'll be back. But how many years? I am over 20. I've been here for 20, so it's like 24.
Yeah. Different trench, same war.
Yeah, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
There's just I wish I would see there's hustle like never before. Like this intense need to do a whole bunch of shows, and I see a whole new generation of comedians that don't ever get to sit and watch a headliner. Because they're next show, and they're running.
Right.
And that was the whole deal is you go and you sit and you do your set and it's done, you get your drink and you watch the headliner and now you're in class. And the hustle is taken over from the quality of learning that you get from somebody that's like a decade ahead of you.
Has the community shifted, Anna? The community aspect of comedy?
In that, I mean, social media has changed it. You have access to everybody, whether you want it or not. And in the olden days, before the internet, you'd see your best buds once in a while. Like you'd try and get booked with people you really loved so that you could spend time together. So that part of it changed. Like you really have to go. I don't know. Like I don't participate that much in the community from a hustling stand-up anymore. So I kind of miss exactly what's going on, but it's very different.
Because
it's also all on content too now. Like Marla Lukofsky creates so much content on her Facebook and various social medias because that's what we're doing now. And I kind of admire the shift in her brain that way too, because it's still hustle. It's just a different venue.
I like that
AJ?
the playing field is even right now. Do you guys find that at all in your creativity? Because this is our only audience right now, is each other and strangers on the internet. So it's a different.
Sounds super creepy.
Like yeah, of course. And going on the road to Fort St. Mac or wherever in the middle of winter is not creepy at all.
No kidding. No kidding.
It's like everybody's had the rug pulled out from under them, and you have to pivot and you have to land on your feet and you have to still maintain the quality of stuff the brain's putting out. Whether you're performing it in front of somebody, you can't just wait for this to be over. You know, what a great way to kill 5 years.
It's amazing. It's amazing to kind of see the way that this time off is affecting people, right? Because at the beginning, I think everyone was like, gotta maximize. We got a month and a half of this. And if we're not doing something, I'm just going to fall off the radar. And then there was that like, oh, we're still doing it?
Oh, and those people got shamed by these people on the internet. So now these guys are like, don't take care of yourself. This is time to go to ground. And these guys are like, no, hustle. It's like there's all these different kinds of versions. And I think everybody just got tossed. Yeah. And then we all just kind of landed and we're finding our footing. And a little bit of both is kind of falling into my lap anyways.
Yeah, it's true. It'll be interesting how it settles. But one thing that listening to comedy panels like this and looking at the female comedians that we're seeing get a lot of recognition now, like Catherine O'Hara, like I look at that, like her and Eugene Levy and her in the Second City generation from a couple decades ago, you still see a certain level of camaraderie and you recognize them as that generation that grew up together. And I do think about how the hustle now means that we might not actually have a chance to see that community come together and be able to collaborate so much. And in 30 years, be celebrating, when Naomi gets her Emmy for being on an excellent Canadian TV show. And everyone
we're going to celebrate that.
Oh yeah,
for a second. We don't care what kind of country, what kind of woodland creature Naomi becomes.
The nymph.
It's true. I'll be like frolicking with my Emmy. But you know what? It's true because I remember taking Mark McKinney came into Second City and did a workshop, and he said to the cast at the time, he said, "Do you folks hang out after shows?" And I think at the time we were just getting to know each other as a cast, but the importance of like that kind of camaraderie. And like the other night, a bunch of the Firecrackers came together and did a games night with Rebecca, and it was so fun.
That was so
because
fun.
We don't do that. Like we have meetings, we have like events, and then we go by and there's no like Zoom hangout because everybody's zoomed out. So watching their communities, what they had, like Rosemary and Gay and Marla and Monica, I just kind of go like, that's just such from a really specific and beautiful time.
So watch out for
any
the
final
Firecracker
thoughts about
community at the Emmys in like 10 years. You'll know us.
We'll be wearing red and that hat.
I did wearing
guys.
the hat.
Did any of you guys feel this happens to me when I'm listening to a panel of people that have had a career and are still working in it, what you would have done differently or what you could have told yourself, like when you get to that place where you're looking back on some career, is there anything that brought up for you guys? Like things that you wished you would have not been so concerned about or let slow you down? Or
I think the main thing is don't try to be funny. And I keep trying to tell myself that. But I do think that's the nugget in comedy of when you stop trying to be funny and you just do what you do and be authentic. I think that's when comedy comes out, and that's what's going to resonate with the audience more. And so that's one thing I try to take away. And I know someone said it on the panel, don't try to be funny, which we hear it and we're like, oh, okay, yeah. But when they say, just make it funnier, you're like, cool. Great note. Thank you. It's really hard, but to try to hear it, let it go, and then just in your soul be like, okay, I don't go for the funny, go for the real, And it'll probably be funny. Like if it's real and authentic, it'll naturally be funny, I think.
Don't you think, like, whenever I get a question like, what would you tell your 5-year-old self, for what I find those things really hard, because it's kind of like messing with the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
It's like if I went back and told 8-year-old AJ that she wants to be a performer, she's not going to do it for 10 years. So don't go to university. Then I'm going to mess with my loop.
Yeah, that's true.
Good point.
And what I know when I, do start really settling into what it is I'm meant to do, it will only be based on the fact that I didn't, mess up my loop when I didn't go back and try and fix something. And so much of what we hear in almost all of our podcasts that Naomi does with these incredible women is that there is a journey to getting where they are when we're interviewing them. And it's the piece and the steps that they took that got them the success, whether it be success in a job or even just personal. And I try to think about that a lot when someone's like, what is your 5-year plan? What are you going to tell yourself in 5 years? Not to make a 5-year plan.
I mean, I asked the question, the what would you tell your younger self, from all of the guests on the podcast. The thing that I gained from that is how similar all the things we would say, like how across the board people are like, you're enough, keep going,
don't worry,
I don't know, like don't worry, it's gonna be fine. But the other thing is, whatever they told themselves then, we could tell ourselves today and have it exactly as impact.
But we're saying it now. It's like in 5 years, Naomi, I'm going to go, what would you tell yourself 5 years ago? You are enough. I was like, you said that. I was there.
Yeah. We just didn't have recordings. We didn't have recordings for that.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at with the question, was that I'm listening to and reminding me of the shit show that it was sometimes to be a woman in comedy. I don't know if I would have come to this 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but you look back at all the stuff that you could have stood up for, you could have done differently. And that's all stuff I can do now. Is there still open for me to make those changes? I don't have to be focused on the you're the woman on the show and you're not, blah, blah, blah. I don't have to pack that around anymore, because I know it's bullshit and where it's coming from, and that it's, what do they say? It's scared little boys.
Yeah, and it's learning.
Yeah.
We grow with the environment that we're in, and we can't control everything as much as we try to. And one of my favorite quote, I guess, before we wrap up, was you can't fire yourself.
Oh yeah.
On behalf of someone that has packed boxes and told herself to get out numerous times, I just won't leave. I said, like, where's security?
I'm the boss,
get me out of here.
Myself. Yeah. It's even like when we're doing Firecracker stuff, I'm like, we're the boss of us. Like, we have nobody else telling us what we can and can't do. Let's just do those things.
Yeah.
We're the boss of us.
I have a question about that sort of, what the notion of you can't control things, and just wondering if this is an intervention that I should know about. You guys do?
Yeah, this is actually an intervention.
I might be taken somewhere now.
This is why we brought you here. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're going to a really nice spa.
I'll stop making forms.
It's going to be fine.
To a good place. You'll be very happy where you're going.
Speaking of where you're going, there's segue.
Oh, that was great.
What a pro.
Where are you all going creatively? What are you working on that's getting you jazzed these days in your own creative world? AJ.
What am I creatively working on? What kind of tricks to teach a puppy?
Yes, you have a puppy.
Yeah. And trust me, he's smarter than I am. So we're having a little ego battle going on, because I'm only slightly larger than him. But I'm actually finding a lot of childhood excitement to write little animations about animals. I think
fun.
You've seen the first film I did had these little, now that my first film, end of that sentence is the first movie I made had animated animals, and now I have my own animal and I'd like to animate them. So yeah, I'm sort of dabble.
Life.
I love it.
Storytelling.
Emily, what about you? What's going on in your world?
Well, I just realized that I've got equipment in the back. Babe and I are making it's funny you say that, our voice studio in my closet. So that's what's happening. So AJ, if you need voices, I can do your voice as.
Yes.
There.
For the cats and dogs.
Yeah.
Yes.
In my little movie, I was the cat. It was my favorite part. I was I wrote and directed it, but quite honestly, my favorite part was going.
The cat just
Oh, that's amazing.
that's awesome.
Anna, what about you? What's going on in your world?
I'm going to work on my animal voices.
Yes.
My home studio. I'm starting. We had a show at Gilda's Club in Toronto, a monthly comedy show that we're going to pivot, and I'm going to make it into a talk show instead of stand-up comedy to the computer. So there's great stories in this community, man. Like, I mean, look at Marla. Like, she's going to come. She's agreed to come and do the show.
Yeah.
So
great.
Comedians with great stories and big hearts, and I'm happy to give them a platform in that context. So
awesome.
Awesome.
Well, we'll include all the links to all those things. My movie, the Canadian Strain movie about smoking pot legally, was released in America. So hopefully,
good luck getting back to California. You're never going to be allowed back in.
Naomi's entire plot right now is to just make all Americans jealous of coming to Canada because we miss our LA people so much. We're like, here.
We so do. I keep thinking of ways of like smuggling them over the border to bring them to Canada.
But we want
to come. Don't worry. We do want to come.
Emily, there's a book in your building. I sent it to Mo for her birthday about Monique Madrid, who's my comedy partner for the comedy department. She has a book in her hands now called What's It Like to Move to Canada, or Things You Should Know Before You Move to Canada. Or she knows what a Timbit is now. She's so excited. She goes, oh, the Timbits are good.
Honestly, love it. Well, thank you so much. And for all the folks, while you're on your computer, because you're on your computer 80% of the day probably, go over to firecrackerdepartment.com, subscribe to our newsletter to keep in touch with what's going on, give us a rating, support the community. You know what, just tell a friend. Tell one person about Firecracker Department and you've done us a service. Thanks so much to you folks for the after show, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Starting today is the fall edition of the 28th Toronto Jewish Film Festival. Head on over to tjff.com for schedule and tickets. It'll be online from the 22nd to November 1st. Enjoy!